Well, welcome to our online experience. I'm Jeff McLean, the pastor here at the Point Church. And today we want to really help you understand, what does it look like to be generous, to really be kind? Where does that come from? Actually, God talks about it a lot in the Bible, and it can help us understand. And so at the Point, two of our core values are, what does it mean to be serving over sitting, and what does it mean to give over keeping? And so when we realize that we follow God, that's what He wants. That movement of Jesus was being a movement that served others and was generous. And so I am in our pirate ship, which is our elementary room. It is super cool. And so down here for kindergarten to grade 5 at 9:30 and 11, kids get to enter the pirate ship. We also have programs for nursery and preschool as well. So obviously from birth to grade 5. And then we started a brand new class for grades 4 to 7 as well. So lots going on, and a lot of volunteers using their gifts to serve this next generation. And so we want to give you a sneak peek at the room without anybody in it right now, the room before it gets crazy. And so that is being said, we'll also have Trunk or Treat coming up. We want to make sure you're in the know of it in two things. One, if you had an opportunity to have a kid or a grandkid, take them there October 25th. We have 2,100 kids registered. Let that sink in. 2,100 kids registered already. I would say it is the largest Trunk or Treat event in Atlantic Canada. We've asked around, nobody's is bigger. That's insane. And so there's a lot of treats we're giving away. And if you'd love to give a donation, you can go to our website and click give, and drop down menu and just give there. That helps us continue buying more treats so we can show a massive amount of generosity to this community in Jesus' name. The other thing we're doing, October 25th on Trunk or Treat, at 6 o'clock. Come right here to YouTube and you can watch a live stream of it for half an hour of kind of behind the scenes and what's going on, see the kids' costume. If you want to see what is Trunk or Treat, what's it look like, 6 o'clock, we're live streaming right here on our YouTube channel. Spread the word, let people know. We'd love for them to see all the amazing kids and all their dressed up and the stuff that's going on. Well, we're going to dive into what it means to give and to serve. But before we do that, we want to sing together. So would you join me as we sing?
If the Lord has brought you through the fire, right into a wide and open space, if the Lord delivered you from darkness when He pulled your heart out of the grave, oh, and if the Lord's been good to you, lift up your song. And if He saved you, healed you, then give Him your all. If you've seen His faithful hand through all of your days, and if you got breath in your lungs, then give Him your praise. If the Lord has met you with compassion, though you have run after other things, if the Lord has shown you His great mercy, and if He's overwhelmed you with His grace, and if the Lord's been good to you, lift up your song. And if He saved you, healed you, then give Him your all. If you've seen His faithful hand through all of your days, and if you've got breath in your lungs, then give Him your praise. If you've got breath in your lungs, then give Him your praise. Sing it in the morning, sing it in the evening. The Lord's been good to me. Sing it on the mountain, sing a little louder. The Lord's been good to me. Sing it in the morning, been good to you, lift up your song. And if He saved you, healed you, then give Him your all. If you've seen His faithful hand through all of your days, and if you've got breath in your lungs, then give Him the praise. Oh, and if the Lord's been good to you, lift up your song. And if He saved you, healed you, then give Him your all. If you've seen His faithful hand through all of your days, and if you've got breath in your lungs, then give Him the praise. If you've got breath in your lungs, then give Him the praise.
When I was about 8 years old, my sister and I decided we were going to have a yard sale, and we went all in. We dragged out every toy, every stuffed animal, even some of our video games, and we priced it all to sell. I mean, like, we were not playing around. We wanted to make money fast, so everything was cheap. Well, the next morning, we opened up our shop and people started showing up and stuff was flying off the tables. It felt great in the moment until the next day. And that's when I realized what I had done. Because I had priced things to sell, I sold my absolute favorite Nintendo game, Battletoads Double Dragon, for $1. $1. That game now sells for over $130. I should have just held on to that. We didn't fully realize what we had in our hands at the time. Fast forward a few decades, and our church decided to do a free yard sale for the community. We wanted to bless people, not to make a profit, and it was wild. Like, people were showing up while they were still setting up tables, and they were grabbing shoes and clothes. Families walked away with almost 50 bags of clothing. Piles of shoes were giving away, and some of the donations were genuinely amazing. People gave quality stuff. It was one of those days where you could honestly feel the joy in the air. Needs were being met. The church, they gathered together. They came together, and nobody left empty-handed. That morning, it gave me a little glimpse of something that the early church lived out every single day. Everything in life runs on something, doesn't it? Like, cars run on gas, our phones at home run on electricity, a campfire runs on wood, our bodies run on the heart pumping blood. So here's the question when we're talking about ecclesia. Like, what drives the church forward? What fuels the movement of Jesus? Well, the last couple of weeks, we've been talking about living the point, living out the core values that give energy to this moment. We've looked at celebration, we've looked at relationships, and today we're looking at giving and serving, two of the key values that keep the church alive and attractive to the world around that. And to do that, we're going to sit with a passage for just a moment here that shows us a community whose head, heart, and hands were fully aligned. And it's found in Acts chapter 4, verses 32 to 37. And it reads this. All the believers were one in heart and mind. No one claimed that any of their possessions was their own, but they shared everything they had. With great power, the apostles continued to testify to the resurrection of the Lord Jesus. And God's grace was so powerfully at work in them, all that there were no needy persons among them. From time to time, those who owned land or houses sold them, brought the money from the sales, and put it at the apostles' feet. And it was distributed to anyone who had need. Joseph, a Levite from Cyprus, whom the apostles called Barnabas, which means son of encouragement, sold a field he owned and brought the money and put it at the apostles' feet. This is just a small snapshot of a community whose head had been renewed, whose heart was softened, and whose hands were in motion. So what I want to do first here, I want to start with the head. Luke says all the believers were one in heart and mind. And the word mind here is about their thinking, their outlook, their way of understanding the world. Their mindset had shifted. They didn't think like they used to. No one claimed that any of their possessions was their own. That's a radical statement, especially in their culture, right? Like, land and property were everything. It was your security. It was your inheritance. And yet, after encountering Jesus, they started seeing what they had through a completely different lens. They had this sort of paradigm shift. They stopped thinking like owners and started thinking like stewards. They understood that what they had was only on loan from God. And it wasn't theirs to cling to. It was ultimately God's to use. And that's not something they came up with on their own, right? This mindset flowed out of the resurrection. Luke tells us with great power, the apostles continued to testify to the resurrection of the Lord Jesus. You see, it was truly the resurrection that had changed everything. These believers, they weren't just adjusting their budgets. They were living in a new reality. If Jesus rose from the dead, then everything they had, right? The time, money, possessions, talents, suddenly took on a new purpose. Their thinking about their stuff was no longer shaped by fear or status. It was shaped by mission. And that's why Luke doesn't describe a program. He describes a people whose mindset had changed. Then Luke says, God's grace was so powerfully at work in them all. Grace wasn't just something they believed. It was something that rewired how they even thought. Because grace says, everything I have is a gift. Grace says, I'm not defined by what I own. Grace says, God has been generous to me, so I can be generous with others. Ultimately, their heads were aligned with God's truth. And when the head shifts, the heart follows. Luke continues, he says that they were one in heart. And that phrase isn't just poetic, it's describing a supernatural unity. These were people from different backgrounds. They were Jews, Hellenists, locals, foreigners, and yet somehow their hearts were knit together. Why? Because God's grace was powerfully at work in them. When grace fills a community, something happens inside of people. Priorities start to shift. Self-protection gives way to compassion. Instead of constantly asking, what's in it for me? They start asking, how can I bless someone else the way God has ultimately blessed me? And notice, Luke doesn't describe grace as a private individual experience. He says great grace was upon them, what? All. It was the atmosphere. You could feel it when you walked into the room. Imagine walking to a church where grace is in the air and everyone breathes, where gratitude and generosity are the default, where you feel love, not because people are trying hard to fake it, but because their hearts are genuinely alive. And that's what's happening here in Acts chapter 4. Grace was the heartbeat of the church. And when the heart comes alive, giving and serving stop being transactional. Because you see, transaction says, well, I give this, I get that. Grace says, I give because God gave to me. I serve because Jesus served me first. See, it's the difference between volunteering to fill a slot and serving because you love people. It's a difference between dropping a donation because you have to and giving joyfully because you want to be part of what God's doing. Barnabas is this great example, this great and perfect example. His nickname means son of encouragement. He wasn't trying to build a reputation. He didn't make a speech. He just sold a field. He brought the money and he laid at the apostles' feet. His generosity wasn't performative. It was personal. It was relational. And when hearts are softened by grace, generosity becomes joyful. Service becomes worship. And that's what I saw that morning at the free yard sale that we just had on this past week. It wasn't just people giving away stuff. It was the church's heart in motion. People brought their best, not their leftovers. People served without needing credit. Families received what they needed. And the building was full of this contagious joy. It's the same thing like Luke describes as grace moving through people's hearts, overflowing to others. But hearts, they can grow numb, right? It's easy to scroll past needs. It's easy to assume someone else will help. It's easy to keep generosity theoretical. And that's why this heart section matters. We don't need guilt. We need grace to soften us again. Because when grace grips the heart, generosity and service become inevitable. The church doesn't need bigger budgets or flashier programs to move forward. It ultimately needs hearts alive with grace. And that's where the early church was living, in that sweet spot where their heads were transformed by truth and their hearts were filled with grace. And what's so powerful about this passage is that what started in their heads and moved into their hearts didn't just stay there. It moved into their hands. They didn't just think differently or feel differently. They lived differently. See, Luke says there were no needy persons among them. That's a pretty big statement, I'd say. That wasn't because there was no needs. It's because whenever a need popped up, someone stepped forward and met it. And this is where the movement becomes visible. Head and heart shape what we believe and feel, but hands show the world what God is like. And from time to time, people who own land or houses sold them. They brought their money and laid it at the apostles' feet. And then it was distributed to anyone who had need. This wasn't like a one-time campaign. It became this rhythm. Whenever needs came up, people responded and noticed something here, right? It wasn't everyone selling everything all at once. It was individuals listening to God's Spirit, responding as they were led. This was a community where generosity was a way of life. And the way they did it was beautiful, right? They brought their gifts and laid them at the apostles' feet. That was a posture of trust, right? They weren't trying to control exactly how every dollar was used. They trusted their leaders to distribute wisely. It was coordinated, it was humble, it was unified. And then Luke gives us a name. He says Joseph, a Levite from Cyprus, Barnabas. He sells a field, brings the money, lays it at their feet. No fanfare, no strings, just quiet obedience. And this is the first time we meet Barnabas, right? He's not preaching a sermon. He's not leading a ministry. He's just opening his hands. That one act set the tone for this entire ministry. Later in Acts, he'll encourage Paul, mentor John Mark, travel as a missionary. But the foundation of that influence started with generosity. When one person's hands move, it creates ripples. One act inspires another, needs are met, gratitude spreads, outsiders take notice, and the gospel becomes visible. And the world can argue with our beliefs, they can critique our theology, but they can't ignore a community whose hands are constantly reaching up in worship and reaching out in love. And this is why giving and serving matters so much. The early church moved forward because everyone's hands were in motion. Some gave financially, some served practically, some opened their homes, some encouraged, some led, but all participated. The same is true for us, the Point Church. It doesn't move forward on the talents of a few, but on the faithfulness of many. And when you think about what fuels a car, it's gas. For phone, electricity. For firewood. For the church, it's the grace of God flowing through willing hands. So let's talk about what this looks like today. Giving generously isn't just about writing a check. It's about a posture that says, God, everything I have belongs ultimately to you. How can it serve your kingdom? For some, that's financial giving, right? Regular, cheerful giving in what allows the church to meet needs and sustain ministry. For others, it's giving resources, right? Skills, tools, items, connections. And for many, it's just giving time. Helping someone move, fixing something, mentoring, baking, paying for groceries, being available. Generosity has many forms, but it always flows through open hands. Serving faithfully is the same, right? Jesus washed his disciples' feet and said, now you do the same. Serving isn't for the spiritually elite, it's for everyone who's been saved. And here at the Point, that can look like helping with kids ministry, investing in students through 180, greeting at the door, running tech, making coffee, leading a small group, visiting someone who's shut in. A lot of the greatest kingdom work happens behind the scenes. Serving isn't about filling a slot, it's about fulfilling a calling. Now imagine what it would look like for a moment if every single person watching this right now or in this building embraced these two values. Give generously and serve faithfully, with both head and heart engaged. Imagine a church where no ministry goes under-resourced because everyone gives what they can, where needs are met quickly and quietly, where volunteers aren't burnt out because more hands are in the game, where Mary sees a church that doesn't just talk about love, but actually shows it, where outsiders step in and say, there's something different here. That's not a fantasy. That's exactly what happened in Acts chapter 4, what it describes. It's what can happen here when grace shapes our heads, our hearts, and our hands. So let's make this practical. This week, give generously. Start a rhythm of regular giving, not out of guilt, but out of gratitude. Look for a specific need and meet it. Buy someone lunch, help with a bill, give a gift anonymously. Take inventory of what you have that God might want to use. Serve faithfully. Join a team. Pick one act of service this week. Encourage someone. Visit someone. Help someone. Use your gifts and passions for God's glory. And for some of us, this is going to mean making a shift. Maybe you've believed the right things, you've felt stirred, but your hands have been idle. This is your moment to say, God, use my hands again. For others, you've been faithfully giving and serving for years. This is your moment to lift your eyes and see the ripple effect of what you're part of. Your quiet faithfulness matters deeply. And for all of us, it's a reminder that the church doesn't run on a handful of heroes. It runs on the grace of God flowing through the many willing hands. And as we move into this next season, I believe God is calling us to be a modern Acts 4 community, a church united in head, aligned in heart, active in hands, a church where generosity flows naturally, service happens joyfully, and needs are met powerfully. This is what will make the church attractive to a watching world. Not slick marketing, not perfect programs, but a community whose hands are constantly reaching up in worship and out of love. Everything in life runs on something. Right? Cars on gas, phones on electricity, fires on wood. The church runs on the grace of God flowing through willing hands. The early church understood it. They lived it. And God used them to change the world. When our heads understand God's mission, our hearts are filled with his grace, and our hands give and serve. The church moves forward. This is what it means to live the point. Let's be the church.